about the temporary closure of Newmarket Road to facilitate the underpass from the Chisholm Trail. I'm David Charlesworth. I'm going to be your chair tonight. I'm joined by a number of colleagues from both the GCP and from the Cambridge County Council who are working on this project. Joined by my colleague Debbie Goodland and Isabel Lauter, who are from the comms team. And from the project team, I've got Mark Ryan, Christopher Reed and Donald Trimble. And we've also got Alistair looking after the tech as well. The objective of this meeting is for you to be able to ask questions about the project, for us to give you a bit of update on the work that's going on why we install this underpass. Clearly, due to COVID-19 pandemics and regulations around public health, we aren't doing any public meetings, and this is being conducted as a digital webinar only. Normal rules of behaviour apply, and everyone's reminded that any inappropriate conduct or disruptive behaviour may be resulting in excluded from the event. We've got technical assistance on hand, but please do remember, I know that everyone is joining from home and unavoidable technical issues may arise related to the broadcast. But I think if we all just understand the format, we will get through it and we can all have a good meeting tonight. If I could remind people to keep their microphones on mute when they're not speaking. Tonight's briefing has a presentation. We'll run through that, and then we're happy to take questions after that. There are two ways that you can ask questions, either by putting your blue hand up or by putting a question in the chat, the chat section, and we'll read it out and answer it. So that's the sort of instructions over. So on that point, I'm happy to hand over to my colleague. So I'll just note, I'm going to talk about the first. So next slide, please, Alistair. So that's the sort of format tonight with the introductions that I've just done, then the update on the installation, bits of information about the diversions, and then moving over to the questions from yourselves. So on that point, I'll hand over to my colleague Debbie, who's just going to do the first part of the presentation.
Hello, yes. So just a quick update on what the Chisholm Trail is, just in case you're new to the project. So the Chisholm Trail is a strategic walking and cycling route that links the north and the south of the city, predominantly through the Cambridge North Rail Station and the main station, and then going further to the south. The bit that we're predominantly interested in at the moment is phase 1, which links Cambridge North Station and Codons Common to Codons Lane. Yes, I apologise for this map. It's a little bit on the blurry side. We are working on some new maps, but it gives you a general idea of where the route goes. The next slide. So as you can see, the Chisholm Trail is part of a network of new walking and cycling and leisure routes that we're looking at for the area. The green routes on this map are some of the greenway routes that the Greater Cambridge Partnership are also working on. So you can see how it links into a wider walking and cycling network. Thank you. I'll hand over to Donald, I think, to talk about the Newmarket Road closure.
Thank you, Debbie. Just following on what Debbie touched upon as part of the phase 1 works, we have some critical activities that include an underpass construction. As part of these works, the closure of Newmarket Road is required, and there will be a series of traffic management and diversionary routes that we will cover later on in the slides. Next slide, please. As I just alluded to there, Newmarket Road will be closed from 2000 hours on Friday the 26th of March through until 6 AM on the 2nd of April. As you can see with illustrations, this is the road closure, which is a hard closure of Newmarket Road. And as we move to the next slide, please. It basically gives you an illustration there of the excavation and the proposed underpass works, which will be the finalised underpass on Newmarket Road. The illustration here demonstrates box culverts as part of the construction works. So essentially, we have a deep excavation of Newmarket Road. We then place the box culverts over a series of the 7-day closure. We backfill the excavation, we make safe, we then reinstate the existing carriageway and also the footways as part of these works. Next slide, please. As you can see, the diversion route will go down Barnwell Road, follow up along Coleman's Lane, and then that will bring you back to your ultimate location on the opposite side of Newmarket Road. During this period of closure also, vehicles will be diverted as illustrated there on the map, and there will also be a shuttle service for members of the public that would be pedestrians on foot, and that there will be a bus that will follow the detail route from either side of the closure, and that will be running over this period 7 days, 24 hours a day. Next slide, please. As I stated, as part of the diversion routes, there'll be adequate signage that'll be clearly indicating the route to follow. That will be both for vehicles and live traffic, and there'll be additional signage also on the A14 to try to eliminate any backlog or any additional traffic, trying to eliminate that heading towards Coleman's Lane or to the Newmarket Road closure. Next slide, please. As you can see there, there'll be a series of signage in place that will clearly indicate vehicles well in advance of the closure, so that we ensure that the members of the public can clearly see what the route is and there's no confusion. Next slide, please. Bus users, Stagecoach will have buses running either side of Newmarket Road. They'll be clearly indicated and it'll be shown, as you can see in the illustration there, where there will be changes at the bus stops, and they will be clearly notified on each of the bus stops to show you which bus will take you to the direction you need to go. Next slide, please. And as you can see there, the changes to the different bus routes are shown on the illustrations there. They'll be clearly signposted and at each of the bus stops also, so people are well aware of the route their bus is going to take. Next slide, please. Just showing the route there, the buses 11 and 12, and the routes they're going to be taken also. Next slide, please. As I say, pedestrians and cyclists, there'll be, for cyclists and pedestrians, there will be a separate signed diversion route for cyclists and pedestrians across Coleman's Common. The jetty between Sturbridge Common and Ditton Meadows is still closed and will not be available for use. For pedestrians who are unable to use the diversion route, there will be a free of charge shuttle service available from one side of the closure to the other. The following provisions will operate 24 hours a day for the duration of the closure and will meet current COVID guidelines for public transport. Westbound departures from Abbey Stadium, Car Park, Newmarket Road depart on the hour and 30 minutes past the hour. Eastbound departures from Honda Garage, Newmarket Road, opposite Swans Road, depart 15 minutes and 45 minutes past the hour. All times subject to delay if traffic congestion is foreseen. Next slide, please. Guess now back to you, David, in relation to the chair for any questions. I hope that was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donal. So I'm now happy to take questions. The first question is, I've got a question here that says you show a separate diverted cycle route in green across Codons Lane Bridge, but it's on the wrong side compared with the actual bridge. Is this an error? Are you going to direct cycles to use a narrow footway where cycling is currently? No, that's in terms of the cycle over Codons Lane Bridge. We're expecting people to use the facilities that are already installed. We'll have a look at the map if you feel it's not clear. We can maybe make it more make it a bit clearer. But no, the plan is for them to use the cycleway that is in place there. Right. Does anybody else have any more questions for the team? So is there a date for the jetty on? Oh, they're coming in thick and fast now. Is there a date for when the jetty on Sturbridge Common will reopen? Mark, do you want to deal with that one?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, the jetty we've had just quite high river flows and some heavy rain over the winter months. So progress on the getting ready to reopen the jetty has been slower than we anticipated. There's a critical activity happening this week, which is removing the temporary piling from the River Cam. That started today. So subject to how that activity goes, we'll then be clearer on a date. But as I speak, I can't give you a date for reopening, but we'll be clear by the end of this week, hopefully.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. I've got a question here. It says, will pedestrians be picked up in other locations other than either side of the closure? It would be helpful if those living in Barmel Road roundabout, for example, didn't need to walk to the closure first. Donald, do you want to deal with that in terms of the bus?
Yeah, no problem. The current bus strategy for Stagecoach will remain in operation. There's just 2 bus stops that are affected either side of Newmarket Road, and them 2 particular bus stops that are affected, the shuttle service, taxi service that will be in operation as part of the Newmarket roads, will capture people from one side of the Newmarket Road to the other. All the other bus stops that are not affected by the work will remain in operation as normal.
Thank you, Donald. So just more of a question, well, a statement here says 2 buses every hour during the night down Codons Lane, question mark. Donald.
I guess in relation to the shuttle service, there'll be 1 bus operational on at the time stipulated. There won't be 2 separate buses running operational.
Okay, so with 1 bus going backwards and forwards.
Correct, yes.
Okay, that's fine. So, and just to clarify, your first question is fundamentally is that the 2 bus pickup points are the only pickup and drop-off points, 1 outside Cambridge United and 1 outside the Honda garage, and that the bus is shuttle between the 2. Okay, just to clarify what was now.
Yeah.
I've got a question here about signage now. It says, will the signage showing people how to access the RSPCA clinic from either side of Newmarket Road? I don't believe there's any additional signage other than ones you've set out, Donald. Is that correct?
That is correct. There'll be no additional signage for commercial business at the RSPCA.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So another question about the jetty. As Mark has already said, I'm afraid that we had hoped that the jetty would be open before we close the road, but it's not been possible. And just to clarify, I'm afraid the jetty won't be open while the road is closed, so it won't be available as a diversion route, as Mark has already outlined. Question here, Debbie, I think one that you'd be able to deal with. Can you clarify what respective responsibilities are of CCC and GCP on this project?
The Cambridgeshire County Council started the bridge, the Abbey Chesterton Bridge project, and so they paid for that aspect of the project. Excuse me. And Cambridgeshire County Council are essentially conducting the majority of the works on the Chisholm Trail Phase 1, with the Greater Cambridge Partnership paying for the rest of the elements of the trail. So that's essentially how it works. Okay,
thank you very much. And that's why you've got a joint GCP CCC team here, with the GCP supporting the comms, the project management coming from the CCC. Mark, did you want to add anything there?
Yeah, just to add, yeah, and that in sort of in commercial contractual terms. So the actual contract is placed with Cambridgeshire County Council. The contract, so our Tarmac, our contractor who's carrying out this underpass works, they're contracted to the council, but it's the funding and sponsoring is along the lines Debbie's just outlined. sorry, and that's for phase one. Just to be clear, with this contract in delivery is with tarmac is for phase one, which
Okay,
includes
that's
this
fine.
underpass.
Yeah, and phase one, just to clarify, is from basically the whole route from Cambridge North Railway Station to Codons Lane, Codons Lane opposite Cromwell Road. The rest of the map, the rest of the Chisholm Trail is in future phases. Debbie, I've got a question here which is about pollution, which I know is a city council responsibility, but it's if you could answer as much as you can, which is how will you measure pollution on Codons Lane and mitigate it?
I think you probably have more information on that than me, David.
That's true. Fine. The city council is responsible for measuring pollution, and I know they have a number of sensors both on Newmarket Road and on Codons Lane, which will be operational throughout this closure to monitor the closure. In terms of mitigation, I think the two things I'd say about that is that we have taken the decision to close the road in the Easter holidays for two reasons. The first reason is that in the holidays there is less traffic, and the second reason is that we wanted to do this sooner rather than later before traffic levels return to pre-COVID levels. And so those are the two mitigating actions we've put in, is to close it early and to close it in the holidays to try and keep traffic levels down. The feeling was that the longer we leave it, and if we crept into the time when the schools are open, the traffic levels would be higher and the pollution and congestion would be worse. We recognise that this is not without impact on individuals and families and communities, but of the options that were available to others, we felt this was the best way forward in terms of pollution and congestion. Question here, which is what provisions we've made to improve the safety of the rail underpass on Codons Common. Obviously, there will be much higher volumes of foot and cycle traffic. That's slightly away from the project, what we're talking about, but I just think the answer there is that improvements to that rail bridge is not in scope for this phase of Chisholm. Although I understand we are looking at improving the sight lines to be at either side of the road, either side of the rail bridge. The bridge itself is owned by Network Rail, and therefore any improvements to the bridge would have to be agreed with them, and that would be, given the layout of it and its construction, I think that could be quite an expensive thing. In terms of the long-term progress for the rail bridge, that's for a future phase and for future funding to address. But at the moment, there isn't any plan to change anything in the short term. Is that correct, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, so phase one is scope is from Barnwell Lakes, just to the north of the underpass down to Coleman's Lane. Down to from the River Cam, the new bridge, down to Barnwell Lakes. Coleman's Common then is being looked at and being scoped out as we speak. But I think it's broadly in terms of the plans for Network Rail. That's on the ones you've outlined, David.
Okay, thank you. So a question here, next question, which is looking ahead to when opened, will all of these be allowed to use the Chisholm Trail, which is e-scooters, e-bikes, e-trikes, e-motorbikes? Will they all be allowed on it to use this route? So that's a good question. I'm not sure I have the answer to that. My understanding is this will be a cycleway and they're covered by cycle, whatever the rules are for cycleways, which is agreed at national level. Is that correct, Debbie?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I'm not completely sure. We might have to take that away and have a look.
That's fine.
But at the moment, it's considered to be a walking and cycleway. I'm not sure that e-scooters are covered, but I will go away and check. If you'd like to email us, then I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say we're happy to take. We don't say we don't promise to have all the answers, but if you email us on contact us at greatercambridgeshire.gov.uk,
.org.
That's right. .org.uk. Sorry, I knew I was going to get it wrong. Then we'll be able to give you a fuller answer. I will put the email address up at the end of the presentation as well. So not sure about e-scooters, but we'll find out for you. And what provision is being made to help the young cross to the playground on Codons Lane? Obviously, this closure is school holidays, so it's expected to be busy. I think we, Mark, I'm not sure we're planning to put any extra provision in on Codons Lane in terms of crossings, are we?
No, David, they're not. That's something we need to look at, I think, in terms of the provision in terms of access to the playground, but not to my knowledge, no.
And thanks very much. So the next question here is, I've read somewhere that none of the Chisholm Trail, including the new cycle bridge, could be opened until all of the works are finished, including that's on Codons Common. Is that true? And if so, why? Mark, are you able to answer that one?
I would, yeah, I'd answer that with a caveat, David.
Hmm.
Yeah, because we're recently joined, John and myself, in terms of the delivery. And we're focusing very much on delivery, the contract. Our understanding is that what we're delivering in terms of the contract with Tarmac can open in November. I'm not aware of any restriction or qualification on that, but I will double check on that. But to the best of my knowledge, no, there is no restriction of that. Of that
Okay,
time.
so it's part of it.
But
so it could open in phases. Is what you're saying.
So
Sorry.
Go ahead, David. No, yeah. So what we're doing, so we're very much governed by a commercial contract in place, and that sets pretty much the parameters for what we can and can't open in conjunction with our contractor. But so I'm not aware of any other restrictions of that nature.
And as a whole, the whole of phase one is still on track to open later this year. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. And the next question is, there is likelihood of increased congestion and pollution on Codons Lane. Can signs be installed telling motorists to turn off their engine when vehicles are static? Debbie, I know we've had a number of inquiries about this. There are quite strict rules in terms of what we can put on signage, but is this something we can look at?
Yeah, there are quite strict rules around signage, but we could look at that. I don't know whether Donal, what you think about that? Donal?
Yeah, that's something we can. That's something I can think of. We can look at that, Debbie.
Is there any plans? So the next question is there any plans in place to allow residents to get to their homes on Codons Lane? I mean, as I've said, is we have chosen to go in the Easter holidays because of the less of the traffic, and we've also going before the traffic levels come back to pre-COVID levels. However, we accept that this is going to be disruptive, for which we apologise. But I understand there are no particular plans to manage the traffic down Codons Lane other than the diversion routes that have been approved.
One thing I can add.
Yeah, Mark, sorry.
One thing I just can add. We are trying to ameliorate that as best we can.
Yeah.
So we have on standby signal engineers, so we can manage. We can place some tunes to give the analogy on the traffic lights and try and ameliorate and release traffic queues as best we can. So we have putting in place that provision for the first few days of the works. That's one thing we are doing.
Okay, so yeah, and when the traffic lights, are we talking about the ones at Newmarket Road?
Yes.
Codons Lane?
Yeah. The right turn, I think, at Codons Lane to Newmarket Road is one example. But they can, they can look at other signals potentially as well. The other thing to say is you get a dampening effect. You just get a natural as the wider commuting community, my experience elsewhere with this sort of nature of this road closure, you will hopefully get a dampening effect
Okay.
even in normal traffic times, and I hope that will be accentuated at the moment in advance, because of the current government restrictions on travel and commuting.
Thanks, Mark. So moving on to the next question. Will work to improve the paths on Codons Common overlap with any of the underpass work? It's already difficult for cyclists with one diversion on top of the existing Jetty diversion. If Codons Common's path is added to that, it'd be very difficult for people to use that. So I think it's about the phasing between what work's going on Codons Common and how it overlaps with the work in terms of the underpass. Could you talk about that, Mark, please? Is that one for you?
Well, yeah, with both of them, I can help. Donna's leading on a lot of that as well. But yeah, we have taken that into account, and anyone who's been in the common will see we have started some work just on a link bridge, but that's all. And so there won't be works going on in both places. Is the short answer to that.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. So moving on to the next question, which is what's happening on the trail sections between Cromwell and Brampton Road? I led to believe there was nothing taking place in this section. I'll answer this in the first minute. So the Chisholm Trail has been delivered in a number of phases. This work we're talking about tonight on Newmarket Road is phase one. Phase one takes it all the way from Cambridge North all the way through to Codons Lane. Cromwell Road and Brampton Road and all of that bit is in phase two. And we are currently not working on that. Currently, that's the future phase, which we will start to bring forward later in the year. So more information about what's going to be happening in terms of Cromwell Road and Brampton Road, we have been in a position to update people and stakeholders and the public later in the year about future phases. So at the moment, we're just concentrating on our efforts on delivering the construction of phase one. Is that correct, Debbie? No more to add on that. Good. Is there nothing that we can next question? So is there nothing that can be done to ease the situation with the mud around the footbridge over the railway line, which has increased while the jetty is closed? Yeah.
If it's the one from is it into Sturbridge Common? I think it's that one, isn't it?
We're talking about
we have actually. I think we have done something there. I think we've spoken to our contractor, and they have put down some wood chippings. Chris is on the call, but yeah, we have. So, and I know they did that I think last week or before, Chris. So we can revisit that in case. But we have actually addressed that in a small way.
We have just for the extent of where we've got the fencing where it is really bad. Yeah, but obviously we haven't extended that out because we can't go out into the meadows.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really helpful. So we completely appreciate that the ground conditions for walking across Sturbridge Common and distant meadows are very difficult. And as the team have said, the facility putting some wood chippings down to help underfoot. The footbridge over the railway line is very steep. There's a big concrete step, and even with the wood chippings down, given the ground conditions, it's still quite poor underfoot. And that's why we're not on our information. We're not suggesting that as a alternative route for people, because I think it's not accessible to many people, and we're not publicly saying as the council and GCP are promoting that as an alternative route, although recognising that some people will try to use that route, we have facilitated putting some wood chippings down. So the next question is, if I've heard correctly, the culvert will be in place and the road reinstalled within the 7-day closure period. What are the subsequent nighttime closures for? So this is the big closure, which we're working on at the moment, which will involve the road closing for traffic for 7 days. But we have got plans for, I think it's up to 5 nighttime closures, Donal, in the sort of May to August period, but there will be mid mainly and between 8 and 10.
That's correct, David. Essentially, we have, as part of the 7-day closure, we have the main infrastructure of the culverts being placed, and then we have the base layers of asphalt placed as well to underside of wearing course, and then the closures of May, and then over the following closures, we have the final wearing course, line marking, and the final furniture just to complete the section of works.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very comprehensive. So Debbie, another question for you now, which is, thank you for the early answer. Does the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority have any involvement in this project, either phase 1 or subsequent phases?
No.
No. So these are all, so phase 1 is a joint Cambridgeshire County Council GCP phases, but then the future phases actually are completely within GCP. Is that correct, Debbie?
Yeah, they're just GCP, the future phases. So, so yeah, no, I'm afraid no, the CPCA don't have any involvement in this project.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm not sure I understand this question, but I'll read it out and hopefully one of the technical guys will be able to help me, which is this: the sensors on Newmarket Road does not help, obviously. Diffusion sensors on Codons Lane do not help identify peak pollution, and no PM sensor there. How will you address this? I'm afraid I just simply don't understand the question. Does that make any sense to you, Mark?
No, is that in relation to pollution again?
I think so.
Or
I'm afraid I just don't understand your point. So if you want to email us with point, we'll address that. Will there be extensive publicity of the exact location of the closure so that travellers needing to access places along Newmarket Road know which end they should enter? The short answer is yes. Debbie, do you want to just run through some of the stuff we've done to sort of publicise it in terms of media, etc.?
Yes, so we put out a letter to all residents living in the area. Some 3,000 to 4,000 letters were posted to people local to the area and down Codons Lane. I think we'll be receiving one this week as well. We've also sent information to local businesses. I've spoken to the people at Tesco's, for example, about sort of their deliveries. We're in talks with McDonald's. We've also put out lots of information on social media, press release that's gone into the newspapers, and I think that's everything. So yes, yeah. We have tried to promote it as extensively as possible. Also, of course, there's advanced signage on the roads, and there will be additional signage as the closure goes in place further out and onto the A14. So we're hoping that as many people as possible will know about this, and we know that some of our partners have been sharing that information for us as well with them.
Absolutely. So, for example, Cam Cycle, I know they've done their own map and have been promoting them on their very large group of members. So we've made best endeavour to try and make sure that as many people as possible know about this before it happens. So just a comment here from Councillor Kavanagh, who says the Chisholm Trail is for non-motorised users, cyclists and pedestrians. I think that's the answer to the early question. Question here, which is, if we get gridlock at times around the whole of the diversion route, do you have a plan B? Mark, is that one for you, I think?
Yeah, not a plan B as such, and as I say, I'm hoping that we do, as we're anticipating a dampening effect as the wider travelling community, vehicle community becomes increasingly aware of the closure. But but I think that, not a plan B, but we have the plan in relation to trying to manipulate the traffic signals. But no, we're hoping that isn't going to happen, basically.
No, I mean, well, I think the thing is there's the wider strategic points is that, you know, there are a limited number of roads that if we are closing one of the 4 busiest roads in Cambridge, and that is going to be impactful, and we recognise that. That is why we've put it in the school holidays and before we get to pre-COVID levels. There are things we can do in terms of early signage around Cambridge to discourage people coming to the area. And as Debbie has said, we've put as much publicity as we can to highlight this. But Codons Lane, we recognise Codons Lane is a busy road, and that will be impacted significantly by this road closure. We accept that, and we apologise for the inconvenience that will cause. but Mark has talked about us putting, in terms of the signage and the publicity, managing the lights to try and manage the congestion that may occur.
Yeah.
And also what Mark, you've also said, is about as the people get aware of it, especially over the 4 working days of the closure, that there'll be some suppression of traffic around it. And those are the things that we are relying on. I think that's kind of summarises the points, I think, Mark, does it?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Now, a question here. Is there anywhere that interested members of the public can watch some of these works taking place from a safe and legal things? And are you doing a time-lapse video? So, Donal, a couple of questions there. Where's the best people to view so they don't get in your way?
I guess the first question is, unfortunately, just where it's positioned and with vehicles entering and exiting the work zone, it's just not an option to visualize the works at a close proximity. So I guess the short answer will be unfortunately no, just due to the high volumes of vehicles and risk activity. In relation to the second question, the time lapse, that is something we are looking into, and it's something we've looked at this week already. So yeah, we are looking to hopefully have a time lapse engaged.
Excellent, that would be good. I didn't know that actually, so that's quite good to hear. You're going to put a time lapse things. It's
something we just discussed in the last number of days. We thought it would be a nice capture.
I know. For example, Network Rail do a lot of them. I always have a good look at them. I think they're quite interesting. They're strangely hypnotic. Anyway, moving on to the next one. We said the pollution measures on Newmarket Road and Codons Lane, but this doesn't. I think this is the clarification of the question earlier I didn't understand. Which so let me have a look at this. You've said that pollution is measured on Newmarket Road and Codons Lane, but this does not help here. Obviously, the sensors on Newmarket Road do not cover the pollution caused on Codons Lane, and the sensors on Codons Lane do not measure particulates and only measure average nitrous oxide levels. So there is no way of measuring whether our health is put in at risk, and do you anything about it? As I previously stated, actually, pollution management is actually a responsibility of the City Council. So in terms of what is measured and where, that's their decision, and that's something that they look after. They will be monitoring these levels throughout the closure, and that's something that we can review afterwards. And the other point that I would make is, again, it's a point about when we've chosen to do this. We're doing it in the Easter holidays when the schools are not in session, and we're doing it before we move back to pre-COVID levels of traffic as a way of managing the traffic levels. But we recognise that this will be impactful, and we apologise for that.
I think it's important to note as well that the scheme is intended to be an off-road cycle and walking route when it's complete. So we appreciate there is some disruption in the short term, but long term it should hopefully encourage more people out of their cars to walk and cycle. So in the long term, hopefully this will improve the situation generally. So.
Absolutely, thanks, Debbie. So another question here, which is possibly for you, Debbie, which is who will be responsible for maintaining the trail once the construction phase is over? Does it become a county council responsibility as a highways authority, or? It
would do, yeah. So. Yeah. So we would be in discussion with the county council. We would probably have to give them a certain amount of funding. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, Chris and Donal, but I believe because the GCP doesn't maintain infrastructure, the county council does. They have responsibility for that, but we would pay them a certain amount to cover a certain number of years to keep up that maintenance. So
okay, thanks very much. Next question is, in relation to potential gridlock, are you considering opening up Mill Road Bridge if needed be? And my understanding is we are not planning to reopen Mill Road Bridge to traffic. The bus gate will continue to operate throughout the period of the closure. And if you saw earlier on a couple of the diagrams, the 11 and 12 bus are being diverted down Mill Road rather than down Codons Lane, as a way of circumventing the closure. But there's no plans to reopen the Mill Road during this period. So another question here, which is, there's been no regard whatsoever for Codons Lane residents. You are proposing buses thundering past twice every hour for the night. You're proposing no measurement of extra pollution. You've given no thought to playground access, and you've given no thought to signage about turning engines off. Well, the last point is we take your point about signage on engine turning engines off. The team have said that we'll look again at crossing of Codons Lane. I've explained where we are on moving on the pollution monitoring, and the reason why we're proposing what we're proposing is because obviously pedestrians need to be able to circumvent the whole of way, and that needs to be supported by buses, because I think it would be too far for a number of people to be able to walk around the diversion, and that's why we're putting both the buses in place. So given the options that are available to us, I think we're making best endeavour to meet some of the problems, but we recognise that it will be impactful on communities while we do this. But I understand, Mark, that you did an assessment, and the assessment from an engineering point of view was the least impactful way was for a total closure over 7 days. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, rather than break it out into separate closures, which would be overall more disruptive, a full closure is the only option from the width constraints point of view. The thing is, we are working 24 hours a day. We're going to work as hard as we possibly can. It is a 24-hour day-night operation.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, so it's not just 7 days, and we're packing everything we can into that to make it the 7 days as opposed to any longer. But we appreciate it is disruptive.
Okay, I've got no more questions. I've read out all the questions that I can see. Someone's just asked if there was time lapse, and you said you were looking at that, Donal, weren't you?
Yeah.
That's correct. We're looking into the option of time lapse.
Yeah, I think that would be very popular. So just if anybody else has any more questions, you can either put your hand up, your blue hand, or if you want to type something, I'll give you a couple of moments just to type it. And just to be clear, Donal, the road's going to be closed from 8 o'clock on Friday evening, and the plan is to hand the road back 6 a.m. on Friday, Good Friday. Is that morning? Is that correct?
That's correct, David. Yes, that's the plan, told you.
Okay. Thanks very much. I see no more questions up. If Alistair, could you just reshare the presentation, and I'll just go to the last slide and talk through the so just while Alistair's doing that, we will move to thank you. So if we just go to the last slide, Alistair. There we go. So thank you very much. I can see no more questions, so I'm just going to draw this webinar to a close. In terms of contact details while this project is going on, these are the numbers, and these can be accessed by our website. So if you've got a concern or want to raise an issue, then please dial the number, which is the Cambridge County Council Contact Centre, 01223 699906. There's an out of hours number, because that will only operate during office hours. So if you've got a concern or an issue around the closure, which is 0800 876 6087. If you wish to email us, then this is our email address. Now, is that says gov there, Debbie? Is that wrong? You're on mute.
Sorry, yes, it is wrong. Sorry, David. I should
apologise.
It's contact us at greatercambridge.org.uk. I apologise for that.
We all proof the press release. We all missed it.
If you go to our website, though, it is correct on there. So.
That is our website, and the website is www.greatercambridgeshire.org.uk. And there is also a the last one, there's also a page which is about the Chisholm Trail, so you can find out about this and about future phases, which we are starting work on later in the year. And we've talked about the bus. The Stagecoach have a dedicated page on their website about the diversions and the timetable, which is the link is there. Which is it's very long. I find the Stagecoach website a bit confusing sometimes, so that's the link. But we'll make these available on our. These links are all on our website, so that's how you get into contact us while we are there. Mark, as a sort of project leader, have you got any final comments before we call this webinar to a close?
Well, no, just to say thank you all for your time, and we're taking on board the feedback you've given us this evening, and we have been planning carefully for the last number of months, led by Donal, my colleague, and helped by Chris. As I say, we appreciate it's going to be disruptive, but we are planning and preparing and mitigating it in every way we can, and fingers crossed with the weather and everything else, and that we will get this completed as per the schedule by Good Friday morning. Okay, that'll be good. So there's just one final question has just come in, just while you were, which is, will there be any stops on the shuttle? No, I can clarify. The shuttle will run between the outside the Honda garage and outside Cambridge United, and there'll be no other stops. But if you want to understand what service pattern there will be, Stagecoach City 3 will run up and down, and the 11 and 12 will be diverted, but that's all on the Stagecoach website. So that's the final question. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you found that a informative way of finding out more about this project, which will deliver a sort of high quality cycling walking route, which, as Debbie said right at the beginning, will link in to help us improve the cycling and walking infrastructure of Cambridge, which, as we seek to decarbonise the transport infrastructure around Cambridge, will be an important step. So thank you very much and good night.